So yesterday we saw about the different types of reproduction in organisms like asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. So what are the differences between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction? So today we'll discuss about the stages in sexual reproduction. So first, the different stages in sexual reproduction are the free fertilization events, fertilization and post-fertilization events. So sexual reproduction, so what is sexual reproduction? We saw that it involves the two parents and also it involves the formation of gametes, right? So in sexual reproduction, there occurs the formation of gametes. So what is fertilization first? So it is the fusion of the male and the female gametes. So how the fusion of male and female gametes takes place? So before that is the pre-fertilization events. So what are the pre-fertilization events? First, there must be the formation of gametes, right? First, the gametes have to be formed and then the gametes have to be transferred. So gametogenesis is the formation of gametes and then those gametes has to be transferred. So these are all the pre-fertilization events. And then the next stage is the fusion of male and female gametes. Then post-fertilization events. That is, after the fusion, there occurs the formation of zygote, which leads to the formation of embryo. So those are all post-fertilization events. So we'll see in detail about the stages in sexual reproduction, right? So what are pre-fertilization events? So the pre-fertilization events are, that is gametogenesis and gamete transfer, right? So the events prior to the fusion. So fusion of gametes is the fertilization, which is also called syngamy. So the events which are prior to the fusion of gametes are pre-fertilization events, and this includes gametogenesis and gamete transfer. Okay, so what is gametogenesis? That is the formation of gametes. Genesis means formation. So formation of male and female gametes is the gametogenesis. So these gametes, male and the female gametes, they are of two types. One is the homogamete and another one is the heterogametes. So what are homogametes and what are heterogametes? We'll see in detail. So homo means similar, hetero means different, right? So these two gametes, they are called isogametes. So example is cladophora in algae, cladophora. They show the similar type of gametes, right? So homogametes are the similar gametes. They are the similar gametes. That is, they cannot be categorized into male and female gametes. Example is some algae like cladophora. So if we see the two gametes, we cannot differentiate which is a male gamete or which is a female gamete. So all the gametes are similar, so they are called isogametes or homogametes. Example is cladophora. Then heterogametes. So what are heterogametes? The male and the female gametes are of distinct types, so they are different. So here, for example, in Homo sapiens, in humans, they are different. So this is a egg cell and sperms. Both are of different types or distinct type, right? So heterogametes are the gametes which are of distinct type or different types, right? So the male gamete is called the anthrozoid or the sperm, and the female gamete is called the ovum. And another example for a heterogamete is fucus. So they also show different type of gametes. So mainly these organisms which are involved in sexual reproduction are of heterogametes, right? So the male and female gametes are of distinct types, and the male gamete is called anthrozoid and the female gamete is called the egg or the ovum. So these are the different types of gametes. And then sexuality in organisms. So what do you mean by sexuality in organisms? That is, we can classify the organisms into two types as bisexual and monosexual. So what do you mean by bisexual and monosexual? Here also from the term itself, we can say bisexual. That is, both the structures, male and the female reproductive structures are present in the same individual. If both the male and the female reproductive structures are present in the same individual, then that is called the bisexual. Examples are in hibiscus and pisum. They are bisexual plants. That is, both male and female reproductive structures are present in the same plant. And in some flowering plants, that is the unisexual plant, that is only a single reproductive structure will be present. If male flower is present, we'll call it as a staminate, or which bears the stamens, staminate flower. And the female flower is called the pistillate, or it bears the pistils. Okay, so bisexual or the unisexual. Unisexual means only one type of reproductive structure is present. So for example, so this is an structure of earthworm. So earthworm is an example for a bisexual. Here if you see, both the sex organs, that is ovary and testis, both are present in the same individual. So it is bisexual, and it is also called hermaphrodite. Earthworm. And this is an example of Markensia. And this Markensia, it is a dioecious. So what do you mean by monoecious and dioecious? So in the case of some fungi and plants, you can call it as homothallic or monoecious. That is, the bisexual plants are called homothallic and monoecious in the case of some in fungi and some plants. Okay, so here Markensia is an example for dioecious. So unisexual is also called heterothallic or dioecious. Here it is unisexual. Here it is bisexual. So here if you see Markensia, see, you can see the different type of structures. So here the female one is different and the male one is different. So both are in a different plants. So it is called the dioecious or unisexual. But this is an example of Cara. So here if you see, both the male and the female reproductive structures are present in the same plant. So it is monoecious. So I hope you are clear with this, right? So what is bisexual? What is unisexual? And there are different terms like homothallic and heterothallic and monoecious and dioecious. So Cara is an example for a monoecious because both the reproductive structures, they are present in the same plant, and Markensia is an example for dioecious, that is both the reproductive structures are present in the different plants, that is Archegonium and the Anthridiophore, both are different. Here Oogonium, right? So based on the presence of the reproductive structures, that is the presence of male and the female reproductive structures in the same individual or the different individual, they are classified into different types. Okay. So in the case of cockroach, that is the male and the female reproductive structures are present on different individuals. So it is a unisexual. Male and female reproductive structures are present on the different individuals. So this is when cockroach, that is different types of cockroach that are present. That is, they contain the separate male reproductive structure, and the cockroaches have the separate female reproductive structures on a different individuals. So it is an example for an unisexual organism. Okay. So if male and female flowers are present on different plants, then it is dioecious. That's what we saw, right? If male and female flowers are present on different plants, it is called dioecious. And example are papaya and date palm. And examples for monoecious are cucurbita and coconut. It is an example for monoecious. And if you take the earthworm, then sponge, tapeworm, and leech. So these are all examples for a bisexual or hermaphrodite. Earthworm, sponge, tapeworm, and leech are all example for a bisexual or hermaphrodite. So here unisexual animal, example cockroach and higher animals. So fungi may be either homothallic or heterothallic. It can be either bisexual or unisexual. Okay, I hope you are clear with these terms, right? What is bisexual? What is unisexual? And then dioecious and monoecious and homothallic and heterothallic. Any doubts in this? Clear? Yes. So we'll move on to the next topic. That is how the gametes are formed during cell division. That is cell division during gamete formation. For example, in monerans, fungi, algae, bryophytes have haploid parental bodies. So they are all haploid. That is the fungi, algae, bryophytes. They have the haploid number of chromosomes, that is n number of chromosomes. So they have haploid parental body and they produce haploid gametes. So the gametes produced are haploid in number by mitosis. So here the haploid gametes are produced by mitosis. But if you take the pteridophytes, gymnosperm, angiosperms, and other higher animals, they have the diploid parental bodies. That is, they have the 2n number of chromosomes. So they produce haploid gametes by meiosis. So how they are gametes are produced by meiosis. Meiosis is a reduction division where there occurs the reduction in the number of chromosomes, right? So already we saw all these in the different types of cell division, that is mitosis and meiosis. So they produce haploid gametes by meiosis of meiocytes. So what is meiocyte? It is a gamete mother cells. So from the gamete mother cell, they produce gametes by meiosis. Okay. So there occurs a formation of gametes. So this table, it shows the for some of the organisms, that is the chromosome number of some of the organisms. In human beings, that is, we have the 46 chromosomes, but in gametes there will be only 23 chromosomes. And in housefly, it is 12 in the meiocyte, and gametes have only 6 because gametes will have only half the number of chromosomes by reduction division. Okay, and rat 42 and 21 chromosomes in gametes. And dogs, they have 78 and 39 chromosomes in gametes. So in cat, 38 and 90 in gametes. And fruit flies, they have 8 and 4 in gametes. So you have to know the correct number of chromosomes. So they may ask in exam this table. So be thorough with this table. And similarly, this Oviparous, they have the highest number of chromosomes, that is 1260, and in gametes it has 630. And apple has 34 chromosomes in meiocytes and 70 in gametes. So if you remember one, that is meiocyte, we can exactly write half the number in gametes, or you just remember the number of chromosomes in gametes and then you can double it and write for the meiocyte number. So some problems oriented questions also they may ask based on this table. That is, if the somatic cell is having this many number of chromosomes, so what will be the number of chromosomes in the some meiocyte or the gamete? They may ask. So we'll discuss some of the questions also related to these problems, right? So you have to be clear with the number of chromosomes, and also if they ask about the number of chromosomes in gametes, and you must be able to see, right? So rice is having 24 chromosomes in meiocyte and 12 in gametes, and maize 20 chromosomes in meiocyte and 10 in gametes, and potato is 48 chromosomes in meiocyte and 24 in gametes, and butterfly is 380 chromosomes in meiocytes, and so gametes have 190, and anion 16 chromosome in meiocyte and gametes have 8. So you be clear with this table. Okay. So first, we saw about the gametogenesis, about the different types of gametes such as isogametes and heterogametes, and also about the number of chromosomes in the meiocyte and the gametes, right? So after the gametes are formed, there must be the transfer of gametes, right? So how the gamete transfer is happening? So these male gametes, they need a medium. So for transfer, they need a medium to move towards the female gametes. So they should reach the female gametes for fertilization. So if you take most of the organism, the male gamete is motile. That is, it is movable, right? So the male gamete is motile and the female gamete is stationary. Most of the organisms, the male gamete is motile. For example, even in human, you can see that the male gamete is motile and the female gamete will be stationary. But in some fungi and algae, both the types of gametes are motile. So there is both of them can move, right? So these are all exceptions. Some fungi and algae, both are motile. And in some simple plants like algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, the gamete transfer takes place through water. So all these actually we dealt with all these classification in detail, right? Algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. So they need only water as a medium for transfer, gamete transfer. So to compensate the loss of male gametes during transport, so while it is transporting from the male gamete to before it reaches the female gamete, there occurs the loss of male gametes. So many of the male gametes are lost. So there occurs the presence of large number of male gametes when compared to the female gametes, right? So in algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, the gamete transfer, it takes place through water. And to compensate the loss of male gametes during transport, large number of male gametes are produced. Okay. So in seed plants, so what is happening in seed plants? That is angiospermic plants, right? So what is happening there? The pollen grains in anthers, the pollen grains are present in the anthers and they carry the male gametes. Actually, we'll see still more detail when we are learning the reproduction in the flowering plants, right? So actually, we also studied in 11th standard, right? In the pollen grains, they carry male gametes and ovule, they have the egg. So what should happen? The gamete should be transferred. The pollen grains are transferred to the stigma. So it may be either through the pollinating agents or in some cases there occurs a direct transfer. So pollen grains are transferred to the stigma. In bisexual self-fertilizing plants, so in plants where self-fertilization is happening, how the self-fertilization is happening? Because the anthers and stigma are close to each other. Since they are present close to each other, so transfer of pollen grains is easy in the case of peas, which is an example for a self-fertilizing plant. But in the case of cross-pollinating plant, so in cross-pollinating plant, what is happening? That is including dioecious plants. So here the pollination, that is the transfer is with the help of the process that is called the pollination, right? So the pollination helps in the transfer of pollen grains. So pollination by different agents like water or the wind. So many pollinating agents are there, and these pollinating agents, they help in the transfer of pollen grains. Okay, so the pollen grains germinate on the stigma. So on the flower, there's a stigma. So the pollen grains stick onto the stigma and they germinate on the stigma, and the pollen tubes are formed. It leads to the formation of pollen tubes, and these pollen tubes, they carry the male gamete and they make the male gamete to reach the ovule. So it reaches the ovule and it discharges the male gametes near the egg. Okay, so inside the ovule, so here there will be a ovule, and through the pollen tube, there occurs a formation of pollen tube, and it reaches or it discharges the male gametes near the egg. Okay, so but in the case of animals, the dioecious animals, so how the gamete transfer is happening? It is through the process of fertilization. So it helps for the successful transfer and helps in the coming together of gametes in dioecious animals. So they involve a special mechanism for the gamete transfer. Okay, so these are these different steps involved in the gamete transfer. So particularly in the case of seed plants, it occurs through the formation of pollen tube. Okay. So till now we saw about the pre-fertilization events. So what are the pre-fertilization events? First is the gametogenesis, that is there must be the formation of gametes. So after the gametes are formed, then the gametes should be transferred. So after the gametes are transferred, what is the next stage? There must be a fusion of gametes, right? So fertilization, which is also called syngamy, there occurs a fusion of gametes to form a diploid zygote. So diploid zygote is formed. But in some cases, like rotifers, honeybees, some lizards, birds, like turkey, this female gamete, it develops to new organism even without fertilization. That is, without the fusion that leads to the formation of new organisms. So that is called the parthenogenesis. So parthenogenesis is the formation of new organisms without fertilization, right? So I hope you are clear, right? Any doubts in this? So this shows the fusion of so this shows the fusion of isogametes. So fusion of gametes to form a zygote, which leads to the formation of new individual. So normally the fertilization occurs by the fusion of gametes, that is sperm with the egg, and leads to the formation of zygote, right? So that is the fertilization. So actually these steps, they are occurring in a sequential order. This first is the pre-fertilization effort, that is pre-fertilization, which is followed by the fertilization and the post-fertilization events. So they may ask you to arrange in order of these processes. So we have to be clear with the order of this. So if you understand the concept, you can answer any type of question. Okay. So there are different types of fertilization, like external fertilization and internal fertilization. So here also from the term itself, we can understand. So what is external? It is happening in the external medium. That is, the zygote is formed outside the body. It is not formed inside the body. So external fertilization is a type of fertilization which occurs in the external medium like water. So the zygote is formed outside the body. So here example, you can see many type of fishes, that is aquatic organisms like algae, bony fishes and amphibians. So here what happens? That is external fertilization. So the male fish, it waits to spread sperm over the eggs. So they release their gametes outside in the water, that is an external environment. And female fish also lays eggs. So such organisms, they show synchrony between the sexes and they release large number of gametes. So what is the purpose of releasing large number of gametes? Because they are released into one external environment and only some of it will mature into one adult. That is, the fusion will happen and they form into one adult. So they release large number of gametes into the surrounding medium to ensure the syngamy, that is to ensure the fertilization will happen, right? Because they are released into one open environment. So that must be in large number to ensure the fertilization. But the main disadvantage of this external fertilization is what happens. So if all the zygote formation itself is developed, that is happening only in water. So it is vulnerable to predators since they are in an external environment. So offspring are vulnerable to predators, threatening their survival up to adulthood. That is, they won't be able to survive up to adulthood. So there is a threatening by the predators. So that is one of the main disadvantage of external fertilization. So next is the internal fertilization. So here also from the name itself we can say that it is occurring inside the body of organisms. So that is called the internal fertilization. So here examples are terrestrial organisms belonging to some fungi, animals and plants. So they are all examples for internal fertilization. That is reptiles, birds, mammals. In plants, if you take, it's bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So here what happens? In this non-motile egg is formed inside the female body. So female body will have an egg and that is non-motile, to where the motile male gamete reaches. That is motile male gamete reaches and fuses. So the egg is present in the female body and the male gamete, it enters and it reaches the female gamete and there occurs an fusion. But in seed plants, the non-motile, that's what we saw, right? The non-motile male gametes are carried to the female gamete by pollen tubes. So that occurs whenever the pollen grain, it sticks to the stigma. There occurs a formation of pollen tube, and through this pollen tube, the male gamete reaches the female gamete. So in seed plants, the non-motile male gametes are carried to female gametes by pollen tubes. So large number of sperms are produced, but the number of eggs is very low. So generally the male is a motile, that is the sperms are motile. So large number are produced, but the eggs number will be less when compared to that of the sperms. Okay. So the next is the post-fertilization event. So what are the post-fertilization events? So now the fusion has happened. So first step is the gametogenesis, right? That is formation of gametes. Then gametes are transferred, and after the gametes are transferred, there occurs a fusion of the gametes, male and female gametes. And after the fusion, so what is the next stage? It results in the formation of zygote, right? So post-fertilization event, the first stage is the formation of zygote. So the development of zygote, it depends on the type of cell cycle, that is life cycle of the organism. So about the life cycle of the organism, and also it depends on the nature of the environment. So the development of the zygote, it depends on the type of the life cycle of the organism, and also it differs in the different environment. For example, in the case of fungi and algae, the zygote, so how the zygote will be in fungi and algae, that forms a thick wall. So the zygote will be surrounded by a thick wall, and that is resistant to desiccation and damage. So this thick wall, it prevents the damage, and it undergoes a period of rest before germination. So before germination, what happens? Here there will be a period of rest, so that will be in a dormant stage. So how it exists in the dormant stage? Due to the presence of this thick wall, right? So it prevents the damage. And in organisms with haplontic life cycle, so we already discussed about the haplontic life cycle and also about the diplontic life cycle and haplodiplontic life cycle, right? So here if you take the haplontic life cycle, where the major phases will be in the haploid form, right? So here zygote is the only diploid stage. So this zygote, it divides by meiosis into haploid spores, and that grow into haploid individuals, right? Zygote is the only diploid stage in the haplontic life cycle. So here what happens? It divides by meiosis to form haploid spores. Okay, clear? All these things already we discussed, right? Sexually reproducing organisms, they begin life as a zygote. So the first step is the formation of zygote. Fertilization, it leads to the formation of zygote. So where the sexually reproducing organisms, always they form a zygote because there occurs in fusion of male and female gametes. Okay, so zygote is the vital link between organisms of one generation and the next. So there occurs an reproduction or the continuity of the species, right? So that zygote is the link because the male gamete, it fuses with the female gamete, which leads to the formation of zygote. So this is the first step, right? So it is a link between the organism of one generation and the next. So the zygote now develops into one embryo. So it leads to the formation of a new individual, right? So there occurs a fusion of male gamete and female gamete. So the first step is the zygote after fertilization. So after the zygote is formed, the next stage is the development of embryo, that is embryogenesis. Okay, so it is the development of embryo from zygote. So the zygote develops into an embryo. So during embryogenesis, what is happening? First, the zygote undergo cell division, that is mitotic division. So what will happen as a result of mitosis? There occurs an increase in the number of cells, right? So first the zygote undergoes cell division and then it undergoes cell differentiation. So what is the role of cell division? It increases the number of cells. So the number of cells is increased as a result of mitotic division. And then cell differentiation. So what do you mean by cell differentiation? It causes the modification of the groups of cells. That is, initially it will be present as a single cell and then there occurs the presence of many cells, and these cells actually they form various tissues and then they form an organs and which form an organism. Okay, so this is the development of embryo. So from the zygote there occurs the formation of embryo. So based on the place of zygote formation, so where the zygote is developing, based on that, there are two types of animals. One is called the oviparous animal and another one is the viviparous. So on the based on the place of zygote development, that is the where the zygote is developing, oviparous and viviparous. So what do you mean by oviparous? They are the egg laying animals. So animals lay fertilized or unfertilized eggs. So that is an oviparous, right? So examples are reptiles and birds. They are the examples for oviparous because they lay eggs. The fertilized eggs are covered by a hard calcareous shell. So the eggs will be covered by a strong shell. So what is the role of the strong shell? Because to protect, right? So the fertilized eggs are covered by hard calcareous shell and they are laid in a safe place. So they'll be so cautious that the egg should be safe. So after incubation, the young ones hatch out. So this type of reproduction is in the case of oviparous animals, right? And what is viviparous? Viviparous is the zygote develops into an young one inside the human or the female body. It develops into a young one. So mammals, most of the mammals are example for the viviparous. So later the young ones are delivered out of the body, right? So humans are all examples for viviparous. So because of the proper care and protection, the chances of survival of young ones are greater. That is, the survival chance or the protection is greater in viviparous animals, right? So because they lay eggs and that is not so safe and that always are attacked by predators, right? And there is another one category which is called the ovoviviparous. Ovoviviparous. So what do you mean by ovoviviparous? Here the examples are shark and rattlesnakes. For examples for shark, ovoviviparous. here actually what happens is the female retains the egg inside its body after fertilization, but it attains the development, or it allows the development of an embryo inside the body, but there is no nourishment to the embryo because placenta is absent. No placenta. In the case of Oviparous, the main feature is no placenta. So there is no nourishment to the developing embryo. So examples are shark and the rattlesnakes as an example for Oviparous. Okay. And then in the case of some plants, what happens after the post fertilization in plants, that is in flowering plants? So the first there occurs in formation of zygote. So where the zygote is formed, it will be formed inside the ovule, right? So after pollination, what happens is, that is after pollination, then fertilization, what happens is the sepals, petals, and stamens of the flower, they will wither and fall off after fertilization. Right? So, but what happens to the pistil? The pistil, that is the female reproductive part, right? The pistil, they remain attached to the plant. That will be remain attached to the plant. And this zygote, first it develops into what? Embryo, and ovule will develop into seed. Then ovary, it develops into fruit. Right? And which develop a wall around it, and that is called the pericarp. And then there occurs, and that is, it covers the seed, and then again the seed dispersed, and then they germinate under favorable conditions. So this is the here S, it represents the seed, and P, it represents, that is, it forms a protective coat, that is called the pericarp, right? P is the pericarp. So this is what is happening in flowering plants, that is after fertilization or the post-fertilization events. Ovule will become the seed and ovary will become a fruit, and they form a protective layer that is called the pericarp. Okay, so these are the post-fertilization events in plants. So any doubts? Are you clear with this? So with this, we have completed the chapter, that is reproduction in organisms. That is about the general introduction about the reproduction. So what is reproduction and what are the different types of reproduction, like asexual and sexual reproduction. So yesterday we saw in detail about the asexual reproduction, about the different types, like how it occurs by the natural means or by the artificial means. And today we saw in detail about the different events that are happening in sexual reproduction, right? About the 3 stages: pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization. Okay, so we'll discuss few questions. So select the correct sequence from the following. First is the juvenile phase, senescent phase, reproductive phase, juvenile phase, reproductive phase, and senescent phase, reproductive phase, juvenile phase, and senescent phase, vegetative phase, reproductive phase, and senescent phase. So which of the sequences are correct? Yes, yeah, good. D is the right answer, right? Because the second and the fourth sequence are correct. That is, first just the juvenile stage, which is followed by the reproductive phase, and which is followed by the senescent phase. And also in fourth, vegetative phase, that is in plants, the juvenile phase is called the vegetative phase, which is followed by reproductive phase and senescent phase. So both 2 and 4 are in the correct sequence, but not the first one, because here the juvenile phase is followed by senescent phase. So this is wrong, right? So this is the wrong option. And also here first it is given as reproductive phase. So first is the juvenile phase. So this is also a wrong sequence. Okay, you're clear, right? The motile reproductive structures of algae and fungi, which directly give rise to new individuals are called. Yeah, it is zoospores. So this also already we saw in detail even in 11th. So some of the topics actually will be interrelated. So you correlate with the 11th standard topics and then study so that it will be clear for you to answer any type of question. Okay. So the motile reproductive structure of algae and fungi, which directly give rise to new individuals, so called zoospores. In flowering plants, both male and female gametes are non-motile. The method to bring them together for fertilization is water only, air only, pollination, and apomixis. So what they, yeah, C is the right answer. Yeah, good. I hope you're clear with that, right? C is the right answer. That is the pollination. So if you see the flowering plants, both are non-motile. So how they are brought together? By pollination, by different, it may be either water or the air or some other animals, so different pollinating agents. So the method, they ask for the method. So the method is pollination. And what do you mean by apomixis? Apomixis is the asexual mode, right? So that is not the right answer. So pollination is the right answer. So C is the correct option. Diploidy of ovary, anther, egg, pollen, male gamete, and zygote are respectively. So first you see whether it is a diploid condition or a haploid condition. So which all will be the haploid? Only the gametes, right? All gametes will be haploid. So what will be the option? So here, which are all the gametes? Yes, B is the right answer. So how B is right answer? First, ovary, it is 2n, and anther is also 2n, but egg is a gamete, so n, and pollen is a male gamete, so it is n, and male gamete is an n, and zygote is 2n, it is diploid. So B is the right answer. So clear, right? Which of the following is Oviparous? Reptiles, frog, all mammals, and majority of the mammals. So which of the following is Oviparous? Yeah, D is the right answer. Majority of mammals, because except platypus, right? So D is the right answer. That is majority of the mammals. Which of the following fertilized eggs are covered by hard calcareous shell? Reptiles and birds, frog, mammals, frog, and toad. So in which of the following fertilized eggs are covered by hard calcareous shells? Yeah, A is the right answer. That is reptiles and birds. Okay, so A is the correct answer. Which of the following require water for fertilization? Algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes. Yeah, all is the right answer. Only the higher plants like the gymnosperms and angiosperms, they doesn't require water. But all these plants, that is algae, bryophytes, and pteridophytes, they need water. Okay, so all is the right answer. Ciliated motile spores are called aplanospores, gonorrhea, zoospores, and oospores. So ciliated motile spores are called. Is again it is C, zoospores. So clear. So only the zoospores they are the motile spores. All the others are non-motile. Okay. So we'll discuss few more questions. So read the following statements and select the incorrect one. Cucurbita and coconut, they are monoecious. Then papaya and date palms, dioecious. Leeches and tapeworm are bisexual. Sponges and coelentrates, they are unisexual. So which is the incorrect option among these? Which is the incorrect option? So cucurbita, coconut, monoecious, papaya, date palms, dioecious, leeches and tapeworm, bisexual, sponges and coelentrate are unisexual. So which is the incorrect option? Yes, D is the incorrect option. All the others are right options. So cucurbita and coconut is monoecious, papaya and date palms are dioecious, and leeches and tapeworm are bisexual. So all these are correct options. Only the wrong option is sponges and coelenterate is unisexual. So it is the wrong option, right? So the next question. In maize, a myocyte has 20 chromosomes. What will be the number of chromosomes in this somatic cell? The options are 40, 30, 20, and 10. That is, in maize, the myocyte has 20 chromosomes. So what will be the number of chromosomes in the somatic cells? Yeah, that is also 20. So you are able to follow it, right? That is, myocyte has 20 chromosomes. And the number of chromosomes in the somatic cells will also be 20. So, but if the question is asked as gamete, so what will be the answer? What will be the number of chromosomes in the gametes? Then the answer will be 10. So, gametes will have half the number of chromosomes, right? Yeah, D is the right answer if the question is like that. Okay. So, for this question, C, that is 20 is the right answer. So if a butterfly has chromosome number of 380 in its myocyte or the 2N, what will be the chromosome number in its gametes? Whether it is 360, 190, 95 or 760. So which is the right option? If a butterfly has chromosome number of 380 in its myocyte, so what will be the chromosome number in its gamete? Yeah, B is the right answer. That is 190 because the gametes will have half the number of chromosomes. So these type of simple questions may come. So we'll be clear with the chromosome number and also see clearly whether it is a myocyte or a gamete or a somatic cell. So based on that, we have to calculate the number of chromosomes. Okay. The number of chromosomes in myocyte in apple is 24, 380, 34, and 20. So, which is the right answer? The number of chromosomes in the myocyte in apple is 24, 380, 34, and 20. So, you should be clear with the, yeah, 34 is for apple. 34 is the right answer. That is option C. Yeah. So, in the table, you be clear with the number of chromosomes. So any type of question they may ask from the table. So be clear with the table and also the diagrams. Okay. So which of the following pair is wrongly matched while the remaining three are correct? Penicillium gonedia, water hyacinth, runner, bryophyllum, leaf buds, agave bulbils. So which of the pair is wrongly matched? Penicillium gonedia, water hyacinth, runner, bryophyllum, leaf buds, agave bulbils. So correct option is yeah, B, because water hyacinth, the case of water hyacinth, it is not runner, but what it is, what type of propagation it is, or vegetative propagation. The case of water hyacinth, it is not runner, but it is offset, right? So it is wrongly matched, but it is all the other pairs are correct. That is Penicillium by gonedia, bryophyllum, leaf buds, and agave by bulbils. Okay. So B is the right answer. The chromosome number in the myocyte of housefly is 8, 12, 21, 23. The chromosome number in the myocyte of housefly is 8, 12, 21, 23. Yes, again B is the right answer. Then the events in sexual reproduction prior to the fusion of gametes are the option A, gametogenesis and gamete transfer, spermatogenesis and oogenesis, gametogenesis and pollination, all of the above. So which is the right option here? The events in sexual reproduction prior to fusion of gametes. So before the fertilization is D is the right answer because All these processes will happen only prior to fertilization. That is gametogenesis, gamete transfer, spermatogenesis, oogenesis, gametogenesis, and pollination. So all of the above is the right answer. Okay, good. Then which of the following statements is wrong? If male and female reproductive structures present in the same individual, if it is present in the same individual, it is called bisexual. Hibiscus and physum, etc. are bisexual plants. If male and female flowers are present on the same plant, it is called dioecious. Earthworm, leech, sponge, and tapeworm, etc. are hermaphrodite. So among these statements, which of the statement is wrong? Yeah, C is the right answer. Because if male and the female flowers are present in the same plant, it is not called dioecious, but it is called the monoecious. Okay, so C is the right answer. So we have to be clear with these terms. Monoecious, dioecious, homothallic, heterothallic, unisexual, and bisexual. Okay. If male and female reproductive structures are present on different individuals, it is called bisexual, monoecious, unisexual, hermaphrodite. So which is the correct option? If male and female reproductive structures are present on different individuals, it is called, yes, again it is option C, that is unisexual, because all the other terms, that is bisexual, monoecious, and hermaphrodite, they all represent the bisexual, right? So the correct option is unisexual is the correct option. Other terms are, they are all similar terms, that is bisexual, monoecious, and hermaphrodite, right? So unisexual is the right answer. The next question, which of the following sets of organisms have haploid parental body? Pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and protists. Option B, many monorans, fungi, algae, and bryophytes. Option C, many algae, bryophytes, gymnosperms, and fungi. Protists, fungi, sponges, and cnidarians. So what is the correct option here? Which of the following sets of organisms have haploid parental body? So among these groups, which one, or that is all these organisms should have the haploid parental body? So which of these? First is pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and protists. Second, many monorans, fungi, algae, and bryophytes. Third, many algae, bryophytes, gymnosperms, and fungi. And D is protists, fungi, sponges, and cnidarians. So cnidarians, it will come under the animals, right? Yes, the option B is the right answer, because that group has all the organisms which have the haploid parental body, right? Many monorans, fungi, algae, and bryophytes. So B is the right option. And in seed plants, option A, the non-motile male gametes are carried to the female gamete by pollen tubes. And then option B, motile male gametes are carried to the female gamete by pollen tubes. Option C, the non-motile female gametes are carried to male gametes by pollen tubes. And option D is motile female gametes are carried to male gamete by pollen tubes. So yes, A is the right option. So what is happening here? The male gametes are non-motile. So non-motile male gametes, right? Non-motile male gametes are carried to female gametes by pollen tubes in seed plants. So you be clear with it because all these statements are looking similar. So please go through these terms clearly, which is non-motile and motile. So here they actually the terms are all similar. So you have to read the options clearly before picking an option, right? So the male gametes are non-motile. So non-motile male gametes are carried to the female gametes, that is which are present in the ovule by pollen tubes. So this is the right option, that is option A. Then wall of the ovary forms pericarp, endosperm, fruit, and then both A and B. The wall of the ovary forms. So wall of the ovary will form whether it is an pericarp, endosperm, fruit, or both A and B. Yes, A is the right answer. It is wall of the ovary. It forms pericarp. Okay. Viviparity is found in bats, lizards, frogs, and birds. Viviparous. So viviparity is found in bats, lizards, frogs, or birds. So what is the correct option here? Viviparous. So what do you mean by viviparous? Yes, yeah, it's not bat. Bat only is viviparous. That is, they give birth to young ones. Just now we saw, right? Oviparous and viviparous and ovoviviparous. So A is the right answer. That is bats. Okay. So which of the following statement is not correct regarding oviparous animals? Regarding oviparous. So oviparous or egg laying, right? So females lay fertilized or unfertilized egg at a safe place. That is the option A. And option B is development of zygote takes place outside the female body. And option C, that is examples of oviparous animals are all birds, most reptiles, and egg laying mammals, and none of these. So the question is, which of the following statement is not correct? Yeah, D. So all the statements are correct statements. That is, the females lay fertilized or unfertilized eggs at a safe place. There is also a correct statement. And development of zygote takes place outside the female body. That is also a right statement. And examples are birds, reptiles, and egg laying mammals. So all are correct statements. So sometimes are confusing. They may ask these type of options. So you be clear with all the options and then find out the correct answer, right? So D is the correct answer. That is none of these. Okay. Which of the following is a post-fertilization event in flowering plants? Option E, transfer of pollen grains, embryo development, formation of flower, formation of pollen grain. So which of the following is a post-fertilization event in flowering plants? Is embryo development is the B is the right answer. That is embryo development is the post-fertilization event. Okay. And also first there occurs a formation of zygote and which leads to the formation of embryo, right? So embryo development. The next question. Offspring of oviparous animals are at greater risk of survival as compared to those of viviparous animals because option A, proper embryonic care and protection is absent. Embryo does not develop completely. The progenies are of smaller size. Genetic variations do not occur. So which is the correct option? The offspring of oviparous animals are at greater risk of survival as compared to those of viviparous. Yeah, that is a correct statement. Why that is? Because option A is the right answer. Yeah, good. Because proper embryonic care and protection is absent in the case of oviparous animals. So they are at greater risk of survival. Okay, so this is the right answer. Then, which of the following is not correct regarding sexual reproduction? Option E, it is usually biparental and gametes are always formed. It is a slow process and involves only mitosis. So which of the following is not correct regarding the sexual reproduction? Yes, option D is the right answer, because it involves the meiotic division. Sexual reproduction involves the meiosis. So actually we saw in detail about the cell division, right? Mitosis and meiosis. So what's the main difference between mitosis and meiosis? Mitosis, it retains the number of chromosomes, but in the case of meiosis, it occurs in the reproductive cells. So there occurs a reduction in the number of chromosomes, right? So that's why the gametes are having half the number of chromosomes as compared to that of the zygote or the other cells, right? So the correct option is option D, that it involves only mitosis is the wrong statement, whereas all the other statements are correct. That is, it is usually biparental. That is sexual reproduction. It involves the two parents and gametes are always formed. That is, it results in the formation of gametes and it is a slow process. Yeah, sexual reproduction is a slow process when compared to that of the asexual reproduction, but it involves the meiosis and not mitosis. So I hope you are clear with this, right? Until now about this. So with this, we have completed the chapter that is reproduction in organisms, and tomorrow we'll see in detail about the reproduction in flowering plants, right? How the reproduction is happening in flowering plants, about the structure of the flower and about the different structures such as androecium and gynoecium, and about the pollination. So how the pollination is happening, different types of pollination. So all these things we'll see in detail under the flowering plants. So this introduction chapter, so we have to, so what are the main points that you have to give importance here? The first thing is, what is the difference between asexual and sexual reproduction? And the tables, all the tables will be clear, because they may ask questions related to the lifespan and also related to the myocyte and the gametes, number of chromosomes in the myocyte and gametes. So these two tables, and also you'll be clear with the diagrams, that is for vegetative propagation in potato, those diagrams and all we saw, right, in potato, and also in the case of offset, that is what is happening. So be clear with all the diagrams and the tables and about the number of chromosomes in the particular organism, right? So these are the main questions they may ask, and also some calculation type of questions that they ask, you must be able to answer, like if they give the number of chromosomes in the myocyte, so what is the number in gametes, or any type of cell they may ask, what is the number? So those type of questions you must be clear with it, right? So with this, you go through the chapter and read through the chapter line by line, okay, so that you can answer any type of question. So this is all the explanation about all the lines that are given. So you read the line repeatedly and be thorough with it. Okay, no doubts, right? So we'll continue tomorrow then. Thank you.